Hi, in this video, I show you the results of pitting Sonnet 3.7 versus Gemini 2.5 Pro. Props to Cursor, they put Gemini 2.5 Pro Experimental into Cursor very quickly within a few days. And I've done a variety of tests on it, and I think that this project that I've got here, which is a quick game one of my friends came up with, which I think is pretty fun, and I'll give you a link to it here in a second, a website you can go to and actually try it out. I think this explains a lot about which one, what are the pros and cons of each one and where you should use each one. So at the end of this video, you should be able to use Cursor and know when to use Sonnet and when to use Gemini within Cursor. So first of all, they did make a major update to, let's go here to the, actually it's here in the models, to where if you saw the max ones, which actually costs money, the context windows are now the same for both of these. Even though technically this one should have a much larger one, you need to use the max in order to get the large context window, which is kind of annoying, but, and I don't even think it's on their pricing page yet that there are extra charges. They used to even have it, oh, here we go. So now you can say this can get very expensive very quickly. So I did not use any of this for it. Now maybe for the context window with some of my earlier tests, you can see this is actually version 6. And I actually went all the way up to version 7. In the first 5 versions, I tried to outlay a much more correct set of files that were much more complex, and both models had trouble with like circular imports, and it just was much more of a complex system. And so I went back to something very old school, which, 30 years ago when I was learning to code, 25, 30 years ago, you just put as much into one file as possible. And you could say that's wrong, but it actually made the models work a lot better. There were still some issues with both, and I'm going to show you the pros and cons of both and which one was better and why it was better. And then that doesn't mean that there are some scenarios when you would use the other model. So here's the starting instructions. I'm not going to go through every line, but basically the key here was to put it like this, and I think it added another instruction that was all of the HTML, CSS, and vanilla JavaScript into index.html. So all of it is in there. It is, let's see how many lines it is. So the main.py is about 1,000 lines, and the index.html is about 800 lines, which isn't bad for something that works. So let's check it out. So basically this game is sort of like a mini version of Telephone. So let's go here and we'll do, this is the one, so you can actually go to aispygame.com and you can see that right there. So if we just go Gem, and it needs at least 3 players, so we're going to open up several other windows here. This is actually so this one is the Gemini one. So Bill, so it did show that correctly, and we'll go here and we'll go John. All right, so it followed the instructions that I gave it, which was to initiate a vote to get the game started. And here we go. Okay, and I'll hit submit prompt. And while this is going on, basically the idea is for, once this is generated, for the other 2 players to guess the prompt based upon the images they get, and then it ranks them based upon semantic similarity, and then it goes around. And so it's like a version of AI Spy that's kind of interesting, and it's using Midjourney to run this. So you can actually go there, and maybe some people will be waiting for the game. It only allows 1 game at a time because that's what we set up, and it's pretty simple, so forgive the simplicity of it. So in this one we'll do baby, mouse, and elephant, and then if we go over here, so now let's say a chicken and a monkey, just to get it. Submit guess was working before. Okay, so well, just believe me that this was working just a few seconds ago, just when I was trying this on. I'm not sure why it's not working anymore. I would go back and I would fix that. But let's check out Sonnet right now and see what type of differences are. First of all, it added something I did not ask for, which is useful, but I did not ask for it. So that's something of note. So John, and so we want to create a new game here. Not ready. We go here. Actually, we go back. There is a game code to join the same game. Do Bill, and we'll do this to join the game. Steve. All right, so now this looks nicer right here, which is pretty cool. It added some additional features that looks kind of nice. So we'll try this, and we'll see what comes back. And so notice how there are some additional, it goes yellow here. Again, something I didn't ask for, which in some ways is good, but long story short, what ends up happening is there's a lot more bugs in here. I had to spend a lot more time fixing the bugs. So even the Gemini had some bugs when I first did it, but after a couple of rounds of, putting in the errors, describing them, and giving it to Gemini, about 3 or 4 iterations, it got it right to the point that you see it now. Actually, it was better. I'm not sure why the scoring is suddenly. I was kind of toying with some things beforehand. So this one actually does not, it should show all 4 images, and it does not work. And then there's a bug in here, so let's just call it King Kong. And if we go here, chicken. So it kind of freezes here, or at least it did before. Continue to next round. In my experience, it does not work consistently. So waiting for Bill. This is so weird. So this one says waiting for John to enter the prompt. This one says, just a second ago it said waiting for Bill to enter the prompt. Let's say monkeys. I'm just going to do monkeys just to get the, and oh yeah, the submit prompt button is not working. It did not score correctly because both of them did input guesses, so there's still some errors. This is after about a dozen back and forths. So if I were to classify the differences between these different models, Claude 3.7 is more creative, but most importantly for Gemini, it follows instructions much better. And so it did provide a simpler interface, which is what I wanted. The chat does work. Monkey. I think if we go to here, but it didn't have as many of the additional features, like the yellow when your countdown was lower. The UI looks a little snazzier here, but it has an issue here. I didn't ask it for any of this. In fact, I asked for it to be very simple for a first version. So that is something that I think is really important. And personally, I don't want the model to be creative unless I tell it to be creative. And so 3.7, I think, is the lesser model right now for coding for most things. Maybe if I got to the stage where I was like, okay, let's snazz up the front end, I might switch over to 3.7 Sonnet thinking and see what happens, and then be ready to roll it back, because it did seem to make it nicer looking. Now, I will also try Gemini on that. I would try either one. I expect that Gemini would be better at following instructions, but if I'm willing to go through a few more iterations or looking really nice is much more important, I might try 3.7 Sonnet. So I've seen a bunch of fantastical people saying online, hey, Gemini 2.5 Pro is amazing. I mean, I would say it is better than Sonnet 3.7, which for us within my company for the last year plus, Sonnet has been the best model, or Anthropic's Claude models have been the best models for all sorts of different purposes. So this is really good. And if you can get access to the full context window, especially if you want to do Max, I imagine it can do even better on more complex things. But it definitely follows instructions better, and while Sonnet has more creativity. What have you found? I'm curious if you have if you are finding the same things or if there's something different, because I've found this across multiple projects, not just this one, that Gemini 2.5 Pro gets things done more reliably and has less bugs and is able to fix its bugs more reliably than Sonnet, which is pretty awesome. And so I'm curious if you found the same thing. So let me know in the comments. If you want to see more examples of using Cursor, check out this video. Not sure I'm going to put it. I'll put a video somewhere around here. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye.